I've got a new pen I haven't tried yet. I think we should make something weird with it. Well, hello there, I'm Detroit. I'm really excited to use this new pen of mine, a Parker fountain pen with fine nib. I thought for a while what I should draw with it, and it was hard to find the right idea. I've been drawing things that somehow make sense for a while. Maybe not to you, but to me. I have fallen into a bit of a predictable pattern in the way I find inspiration and what I decide to draw for my abstract patterns. From the outside, just seeing the final drawings like these, you may have no idea, but my way of thinking is the same for all of them. And since I'm always on the lookout for innovation, let's change that with something I didn't think of. A face, but abstract, with the same pattern I made on my mug a couple years ago. These days, when I think of drawing a face, I want to make it look good, anatomically speaking. It needs to make sense, be somewhat realistic. But who decided on these rules if not me? So we agree I don't need to draw a realistic face, hence why we can play with the shapes. While sketching this, I kept going back in my head to a fuzzy image I had, but I didn't know where it came from. It's only about at the midway point of this drawing that I remembered where the picture came from. This face I drew made me think of the cover for the 10,000 Days album by Tool. A face with unnerving proportions and weird patterns. Comparing the two, the album and my drawing, you can see how you could go from one to the other in a stream of consciousness. Anyway, the face I'm making is far from realistic. The proportions are off. The forehead is tiny, part of the face is straight on and some of it is in 3/4 perspective, the nose is too elongated and so on. Oh, and there's a third eye, which I heard is not a feature a lot of people normally have. So far, I have only talked about drawing a head, and so now I should talk a bit about the pattern. There are two parts to the abstraction of this drawing. First is the squigglies, like snakes or spaghetti that don't overlap. This pattern is twisting and turning, filling the entire shape of the head. For those of you who have been watching me for a while, or from the beginning of the video since I showed an image of it, you might remember this pattern from this mug. A couple years back, I drew with the fine liner on my white mug and I think it looks awesome. I still have this mug that I can't use from fear of erasing it during washing, but it looks great on the shelf. By the way, while on the topic of this mug drawing, the video I made of it definitely doesn't have enough views. The video is good, and I think the thumbnail is a banger. Look at that. So do me a pleasure, open the mug video in your new tab and go watch it once you're done watching this one. And subscribe. Back to the drawing at hand. Now, you may have noticed in the beginning I did trace a couple of features in ink before doodling the pattern. That's because my goal today is to still show these features through the abstract pattern. By abstracting stuff, it's easy to lose the shape behind it, i.e. make a uniform texture that looks very flat. And that is the second part of this pattern. I don't want it to be flat. I don't need to make it realistic, but I still want the head to have depth. By that, I mean that throughout the process I will do my best to make the pattern denser when it is in depth. And by denser, I mean smaller here. For example, the top of the head curves as you go from the forehead, at the front, to the top. And so the pattern should be smaller and smaller as it rises. As the middle eye is the biggest of the three, it makes sense that the eyebrow should be the thing closest to the viewer's point of view. Just like in a fisheye lens. So the eyebrow should have the least dense pattern. Now, that's all in theory. In practice, turns out it's really hard to make the pattern both flowy and have variations in density at the same time. Doing it all by hand, without much planning, is hard. Maybe I could have shaded the face with pencil and defined criteria for the pattern's density based on the shading, but I didn't, and so it's a bit all over the place, which is still completely fine by me, I should say. I think with the original guidelines I traced with ink, the features are still apparent even without the density when you look into it. Cause that's why this drawing is so cool, right? It's cause at first you only notice the overall shape, and maybe the eyes. But then you look more into it, and you see the eyebrow, and then the tongue, and then you see there is a shape for the nose and the lips and the nostrils and stuff. There's more to it than just a straightforward bunch of lines. That is the idea and why I freaking love drawing this face. I really like it. This drawing is also a test for my new fountain pen, which was a present I got for Christmas. As I said at the top of the video, it's a Parker fountain pen, which is a very respectable brand whose pen I'm used to using. It's got a fine nib, as indicated by an F on the feed part below the metal nib. I couldn't tell you the model or make of this specific pen since it was given to me, but it does feel good. It's rather heavy in the hand and the matte finish is a bit rough, with more grip than most fountain pens, which feels nice. So far, the pen is like an easy 8 out of 10 for me. Now, let's go over the one mistake I made. I really wanted to try the pen as soon as possible, and so I used the Parker Quink cartridge that came with it. And the worst part is that I knew it was a mistake. I don't like Parker ink. I think it's too slim, it lacks thickness and depth. It's supposed to be black ink, but it's at most a dark and very dull grey. For the ink to get a uniform color that could pass as black, you have to go over the same spot multiple times. I hate this feeling. And it's even worse considering this is a fine nib, which is already not very forgiving in terms of line art. And so now you have a very thin line art with a quick drying ink that is not very black. I should have waited just a couple days since I received an ink converter right after I was done with the drawing. I think next time you see me use this fountain pen, it will be with the black Noodler's ink I like a lot. I'm almost at the end of the process, so let's go over some stats regarding this drawing. Maybe they'll interest you, maybe not. This drawing took 2 hours, 8 minutes and 7 seconds. It's not too bad for something in A4 format with so many lines. I do draw rather fast. I mentioned using an ink cartridge earlier. In fact, I used about a third of the long Parker Quink cartridge with this drawing. As I drew this face over the course of 2 days, it took 2 cups of coffee and 1 cup of tea to make. It would have been 3 cups of coffee, but I'm trying to switch to tea since I love coffee way too much. Anyway, that's a total of 4 spoons of instant coffee, 1 pouch of raspberry hibiscus flavored green tea, and 3 doses of sucralose fake sugar, just for the flavor. Oh, and before I forget, at some point during this audio commentary, I wanted to mention that this person, whose face I'm drawing, has the craziest Sharingan that ever existed. I couldn't find a place in the script where this remark could fit, so I'm saying it now. I hope this drawing is to your liking. Whether it is or not, you can tell me in the comments. Subscribing is always an option, as is following me on my social media, where I go by Detroit everywhere except Instagram. You can also give me money by donating to ko-fi.com/Detroit. All the money I get through Ko-fi serves only as a funding for drawings and video making, like buying better lights and at some point a better camera. Anyway, I'm done. Love ya, bye!